From 2014, the 100th anniversary of World War I, when Germany invaded Belgium and England declared war on Germany, sometimes referred to as Family Feud because many of the royal houses were first cousins thanks to Queen Victoria's efforts. She would not have been amused. Germany was the most powerful nation in Europe, and of the nearly 68 million soldiers mobilized, 10 million dead and a further 20 million wounded. It was not an accident or afterthought, as some have said. It was necessary to counter the rapacious lawlessness of German ambition. But the war was mishandled, and the peace was mishandled, and despite the collapse of Russia to the Soviet Union, the great game continued, and today the politics of the great game are still being felt. Russia's position on Syria is why there is still fighting in Syria. Washington's stance on Ukraine is why there is still fighting in Ukraine. England's position on Israel is why there is still fighting in Israel, and each position defies logic unless one considers preceding politics. Israel should be whole and include Gaza, Jerusalem, et al. As her civic responsibility. Only London's intransigence in the 30s and 40s, kowtowing to oil-rich Arabs, has sacrificed stability for short-term gain. Washington's support for divided Ukraine in opposition to Russia, despite the illegitimacy of the Ukrainian governments, is merely oppositional to Russia and instrumental in the deaths of civilians in MH17. Russia's Cold War friendship with Syria and Iran is destabilising, but then that is what they need to enjoy Iranian oil. But it has nothing to do with Syrian peoples or respect of Syrian culture. And taking up from where I left off, the porn industry is sick and rapacious. Models may have high work satisfaction. Who wouldn't enjoy those happy endings? But that is not the apparent long-term experience universally expressed by the actors. New model Alina Lee, at age 19, has been in the industry for a year. She has merchandised and has accounts on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. She has apparently been well remunerated, and has expressed she has enjoyed her work. But her recent experience with a kink team, where she was publicly roughed up and humiliated, crying in front of the camera, is, according to her, a reason to call it a day. She has worked too hard and no longer enjoys it. But then that is exactly what moralists who decry the industry warn. The short-term good feelings do not provide long-term satisfaction. Alina has said she wants to lead a more normal life. Maybe do some waitressing, a la YouTube sensation Caitlin Hills. Life is a marathon, not a sprint. And then there are other models who express total satisfaction. It isn't a life I would want for my children. The Commonwealth Games have ended, and Australian media predictably despised the second placing on the medals table. It is impossible to call Australia's performance poor, yet that is exactly the word news media apply, saying it is the worst performance since Bob Hawke was PM in '86. The weightlifting division underperformed, and track and field too. But then Pearson's captaincy was never going to pay dividends. She's too selfish and self-absorbed. But for Pearson and a few involved with drugs, Australia's performance has been exemplary. I thank them and applaud them. They represent me in the field, and they did it well, giving up many hours over the years when they might rather have been doing something else. Australia may not have won many sprints, but she did win the marathon. On this day, in 70 AD, the Second Temple in Jerusalem was destroyed by Roman occupiers, with Jewish people scattered through the empire. The terrible penalty for uprising had followed Gaul's rebellion being put down after Nero's calamitous rule. A little competence elsewhere, and the world might have been very different. Jewish peoples were attracted to Poland in the 1300s, which is why people left Horowitz for Minsk. My people were musicians and rabbi, and I believe were part of those who influenced classical musicians, who in turn have given us modern music. I apologize on my family's behalf for Justin Bieber and One Direction. In 367, the ambitious Gratian made his 8-year-old son co-ruler. In 598, the Emperor of Sui ordered his son and prime minister to take Korea. In 1265, the Battle of Evesham saw a prince defeat those vying for what would become his kingdom. But in 1327, Edward I's grandson, Edward III, nearly died after losing a battle to James Douglas. In 1693, Dom Perignon is said to have invented champagne. In 1789, in excessive revolutionary zeal, French members of the National Constituent Assembly pledge an oath to end feudalism, but they continue to argue and bicker over how that could be done. In 1892, the father and stepmother of Lizzie Borden were found murdered. In 1944, Anne Frank and her family were arrested by Gestapo. In 1958, the Pop Top 100s are still billboarded. And in 1964, 3 civil rights workers were found killed in Mississippi. That's it for today. If you come by this video at a later date and you like it, also feel free to comment and share. Spread the love. Be well.